Hi everyone, I'm Joanna Penn from thecreativepenn.com and today I'm interviewing Orna Ross. Orna is the author of 6 literary novels as well as creative non-fiction and poetry, and she has experienced every side of the publishing journey. She's also the founder of the Alliance of Independent Authors, and Orna is Irish and has a lovely accent, but she lives here in London. So welcome, Orna.
Welcome, Joanna. You have an accent too.
Yes, well, everyone will love hearing your accent today, I know. So let's start with your fiction before we move into talking about publishing, because I've heard you proudly claim that label of literary fiction, but you also admit that there are fewer sales in that genre. But can you try and define literary fiction for us and why you're so passionate about that type of writing?
Well, I don't like categories, to be honest, when it comes to writing at all. And I think categories are really about bookstores, be it a bookshop, a physical, putting it up on the shelf, or be it on the shelf of Amazon. It's really for buyers to know where to go and sellers to know where to sell. And writers don't really approach it that way. And I think particularly maybe writers who fall into this category, one of the joys of indie is that you can define all these things yourself. And certainly if literary means obscure, difficult, hard to read, experimental, disappearing up its own ass, not the kind of literary I am, or that it's more an aspirational thing for me, really. For me, you might call literary the category that isn't a category in a way, because a genre writer very comfortably goes into the container that is their story, and a lot is laid out for them there. Somebody like me can't do that. I often wish I could. I did try when I was younger to write a romance novel and did miserably, and I would like in some sense, and it's not in any way thinking that literary is better writing or anything like that. There is great writing in all categories and there's crap writing in all categories and everything in between. So it's nothing to do with that. For me, it's as I said, it's an aspirational thing. It means that the story, in a sense, comes to me and takes charge, and I follow where it goes. That's one dimension of it. A second dimension is to do with taking pains over the language. The story is very important to me. All my stories have twists and turns and surprises and take some plotting. They don't, they're not in any way a sort of descriptive feasts, or I'm not a particularly figurative writer. My style is very plain, really. But for me, it's about taking pains with the language and with form, and with, in a sense, as I said, the story leading and the language leading. I like Browning had a sort of a statement where he said, the aim makes great the life and the attempt. It's the aim, not the outcome. He said something like, try to be Shakespeare, leave the rest to chance. Well, I'm not Shakespeare and I never will be. But I like to, when I sit down to write, try to unleash my inner Shakespeare. And so that's what it's about for me, really. And that, for me, is literary. It's the category that isn't a category.
And because I've read a few of your novels now, and there's definitely aspects of kind of mystery in there. Contemporary women's fiction, I guess, is what's called when we talk about relationships. But one of the things that I really like about your books, and I'm a sucker for setting. I mean, I love traveling and I love reading about, I read a lot of travel books, and your books have a brilliant setting in Ireland. Obviously, that's one of the themes of your books, but also San Francisco, which I've never been there, and it was really great to read about that. So can you talk about the importance of setting to you and how you weave important places in your life into your books?
Yes, setting's really important to me as well. One of the things about literary fiction that's important to me is that allowing a novel to do what only a novel can do. So a story can be contained in a joke, in a soap opera, in as we said, genre fiction. All day long, actually, we're telling and hearing stories, giving stories out, taking story in. for me, what's interesting about the novel, to me, the novel is the pinnacle of human achievement, actually. Absolutely, and I don't say that lightly, I absolutely mean that. It contains the best of the writer in terms of their imagination, in terms of everything they know. And I try to bring all of that into the fiction. And the container for that is the place where it happens. We're so interwoven with the places that surround us. We are, in some sense, the places that surround us, because what we see and feel and touch and taste and so on, that's what a novel is, in a way, the texture of the experience within the container. So the setting for me is the container. If I get the setting right, and that's down to, in a scene, you know, if someone's sitting at the table, I need to see that table. It may never appear in the actual novel, or it'll be written, of course, at great pains and then taken out because it's not strictly relevant. That's another story. It may never appear, but it's very, very important to me that I can visualize it through not just 5 senses, almost through 7 senses, have a whole sense of the underlying story and metaphor that is contained within that setting. So, of course, Ireland, I mean, for heaven's sake, we can't stop writing the Irish because there's so much to write about. Our country is full of stories, and unusually, you know, still had a bardic sort of culture right up into the 20th century. So everyone in Ireland is a storyteller. Everybody's telling a yarn, and so yeah, you'd have to, in terms of setting a story there, there's so much that comes with that historically and every other way.
Yeah, fantastic. And just talk a bit about San Francisco as well, because people might find that more of a surprise. And I know, you know, what I guess I liked is that you have this thread across the ocean, and I think some Americans might be quite interested in that.
Yeah, well, most of my readers are actually American, and people are often surprised when they find out that I'm Irish, even though the heroines in the book are generally, in my books, are often Irish or British. Because I love San Francisco as a place. I love it as a place to visit. At any time of the year, I'm there. If I get an opportunity, I'm gone. But I think I love it probably more as a concept. And it, to me, is a place, it's the only place in the States, really, where the American can-do attitude is very manifest in other areas besides the material. So San Francisco has been a first in all sorts of progressive legislation and ideas for a long time. It was a city almost immediately. It grew up overnight around the gold rush, so it's had a very vibrant city, diverse, multicultural culture right from the very, very start. I love that about it. I love all the way in which the sexual liberation movements arose there, the gay lib movements, all of that, as a little Irish girl growing up in a very small rural village, was really mythical to me. And it still has a very powerful sort of hold in my imagination. So I also write the novel that I'm actually, my most recent novel, Blue Mercy, that I'm sort of talking about a lot at the moment, is set in Santa Cruz, which is a small town about 100 kilometers south of San Francisco, and it's a very interesting place, sort of a little microcosm of that liberal, progressive attitude that I find so very attractive. Yeah. Did I mention hippies? Did I mention beats? You know, there's just, it's all there, isn't it?
It is. No, that's fantastic. So also with Blue Mercy, which I really enjoyed, I thought it was a fantastic book. You also write about relationships, and I was particularly, obviously one of the relationships in the book is the mother-daughter relationship, which I'm not a mother, but, you know, I have a mother clearly, and my mum, like my relationship with my mum, you know, is that difficult one. And I think that there's a lot of truth in what you write, you know, in that. So I wondered if maybe you could talk a bit about how fiction almost helps us deal with these sort of elemental truths, and what are the themes in your own life that you tackle over and over again?
Yeah, I'm really, really interested in the mother-daughter relationship. I'm interested in mothers, you know, and the way we idealize that concept, and then are really quite cruel socially, I think, to the real people, and the way we, you know, we box them and so on. Because of course mothers are very powerful in our lives, and have total power over us in our early life, whether they're present or absent, neglectful, cruel, kind, good, loving. It really doesn't make all that much difference, really. It's the power and the powerlessness that the individual feels. So I think every woman who becomes a full woman must go through that rebellion against the mother to become herself. And it's a story that's told very often. It's a feminist sort of, you might call it the central archetypal feminist story of the woman who needs to break away from the mother. It's very often presented as, a sexually liberated daughter fighting against a constraining mother. I'm very interested in turning it around, and also I have been both mother and daughter, so I'm very interested in looking at what it feels like to be the mother as well. So Blue Mercy, I went all out. You ask about fiction and its ability to sort of handle these relationships. There it is second to none, really. It's all about, fiction is just a big heap of lies, but good fiction is all about the truth that's at the heart of those lies. And it's a truth that in some strange way, don't ask me, I don't know why, but this is why I do think the novel is preeminent sort of human achievement. It's a truth that can only be got at through lies. So it is fiction. Of course, then there is that grain of truth at the heart of it. And everybody's always asking writers, what part of your book is biographical, what part really happened, what didn't. And of course, you're a novelist yourself. It's not possible to answer that question. You can't actually separate. By the time you're finished, you don't know what's true, what's a lie, what's made up, what's invented, what really happened and what didn't happen. And I mean, the strangest things happen when you write fiction. I wrote this book many years ago, and the heroine has breast cancer, and a couple of years later, I had breast cancer. It's just the way in which it is interwoven with your life is mysterious. It's meant to be mysterious, and we're not meant to be too analytical about it.
Well, on that, I didn't prep this question, I know, but how has writing helped you? Because before I physically met you, I Googled you and I saw, pictures of you with cancer, and it made, you've survived that, and you're amazing. You're an amazing person. And I wonder how much that writing has helped you survive those things, and whether
writing saved my life. I mean, I am writing forever till death do us part. I can't live, I don't know how to live if I don't write. It's that simple. If I'm not writing for a week, I'm antsy, I'm out of sorts. I have to write. And yes, it helped me enormously when I had cancer, but it helped me enormously long ever before that happened. And it helps me through the good times as well. It helps me to see what's really there, to see through to the heart of things, to see what's important. It slows me down because I tend to be a bit hyper. So it just does so much for me. I write in two ways. It's obviously the actual books and the published work, as it were, the work that goes out into the world. But every day I sit down and I also free write for about 20 minutes. And probably that's in there is the most important transaction of all in terms of writing. But words alone are certain good, W.E. Yeats said, and I live by that, really. I couldn't live without it.
Fantastic. And just another question on the creativity there, because you also, I know creativity, you have a blog and you blog about creativity and stuff, and that would be a whole nother conversation. But what would be the sort of number one thing that you want people to realise about creativity in themselves? Because a lot of people don't have any confidence. I get a lot of emails from people who just say, I just don't know what I'm worth, and I think that has a lot to do with creativity. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, Joanna, this is a whole separate conversation that I'd love to have sometime, actually. But we are all creative. That's an absolute fundamental. We couldn't be having this conversation if we weren't creative people. And the creative process is very poorly understood. One of the things that I'm up to my eyes writing at the moment is actually a couple of pamphlets about this very subject. We are all creative. We've got to find practices to allow us to tap into that and to strengthen that within us. We're all very poorly educated in terms of our creative intelligence because we've all been through an education system which privileges another important dimension of our intelligence, but the more conventional, analytical, rational, etc. And we've all, that schooling system grew up around the same time as the Industrial Revolution, and it is very much a sort of a formal, just look at the desks and the way they're laid out, it says it all. So we have this fundamental, huge, so powerful, so transformational intelligence within us. And it doesn't just apply to books and art and, the things that we label creative. This process is ours for everything, for creating money, for creating relationships, for creating a home, creating dinner. It really is. It's really about creating every moment and being awake and losing the staleness that happens when we set up conventional sort of mental patterns and meet people and places and situations with it. And obviously writing cuts through that, and good writing brings us alive and makes us aware and brings us into presence, really, and awareness of what is ours and what is everybody else's. So I'm so interested in the creative process and how it can be adapted and applied to every single human situation. So I'm writing a lot about that in non-fiction terms at the moment.
And I advise people to go and have a look at your site, and I'll include links there. But it's something that's so important to me because I never thought I was creative. And then, with my story is I had an affirmation, and my affirmation was, I am creative, I am an author, which I started saying for over a year before I actually had the courage to go further and actually create something. So I'm very passionate about helping people with this too. And it has to be a mindset shift before you can do it, really, doesn't it?
Well, that's exactly how it works. It begins with the imagination. If you imagine it, it will happen. And it's as simple as that. It's actually quite a simple process. And we've been robbed of it in a way. It's not about striving or working really hard. There is a whole side of life that it's necessary at a later stage. But in the early stages of creation, of the creative process, there are about 7 stages roughly. In the early stages, it's actually quite an easy thing. It's about allowing it to arise and using the imagination, harnessing the imagination in a way that is productive. And very often for most people that isn't about adding anything else at all, adding more work or anything like that. It's about taking things away. It's about getting out of our own way so that this thing can arise through us. But what you did is core creative practice. Essentially you put a seed down in your imagination, you watered it with something, effort, work, whatever it might be, and then you allowed it to grow. And well done you. You're not creative. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, I know. I know now it's so
it is out there.
It's so funny though when I think about it now. And this is another reason I'm very grateful for blogging, because it's great to have the point in time captured for me, because I can point to it and say, that's true. I didn't feel like that once, and now it's very different. So I really urge people to think about these things. I'll add some links into the show notes, so people should go there and have a look. Fantastic. So where can people find you and your books online?
OrnaRoss.com. Thank you, Jo.
Where you have lots of creative information and things, so that's fantastic. And the Alliance?
Yes, the Alliance is Alliance Independent Authors, a mouthful.org. But Google the Alliance of Independent Authors and you'll find it. Google Orna Ross and you'll find it. It's all there. It's not find.
Fantastic. Well, thanks ever so much for your time, Orna. That was great.
Thank you so much. Take care.